of when you think of home? When I think of home, I think of a meatloaf in the oven, roasting potatoes alongside of it. And I think of a dessert, warm and toasty in the oven. I love the running of my kids coming home saying, "Mom, what's for dinner?" Or "What's for dessert?" And saying, "Oh, it sure smells good, Mom." That's home to me. And today I wanted to bring out the smell of home with a fresh apple crisp. But I'm going to do a little change up. There's no sugar added to this recipe, and I'm going to make a date nut apple crisp that is delicious for dessert and very delicious for breakfast. Join me today as we make this date nut apple crisp together. All right, let's get started. First off, we're going to start by making the crust and the topping that go together on top of every kind of apple crisp. I'm going to start out with 1 cup of coconut. Now, if you don't like coconut or someone you love doesn't like coconut, you could do some flaxseed. I would do probably half a cup, or you could do another half a cup of oatmeal instead of the coconut. I like the taste of the coconut. It doesn't really add any coconut flavor. It just has a good taste. I'm also going to use 2 tablespoons of coconut flour. Mix that in there. If you don't want to use coconut flour, you could use potato flour. Really any kind of flour. You could use almond flour. If I was going to use almond or rice flour, I would make it to a quarter of a cup instead of 2 tablespoons. I'm going to add a pinch of salt, and I literally took a pinch of my salt, a teaspoon of cinnamon, and 1 cup or about 20 dates cut up. And that's going to add a little sweetness to the topping since we're not adding any sugar, and it'll hold it together a little better. And I'm just going to pulse that. I want to get it all nicely ground up so the dates are just very chunky but sticky. There's just some little chunks of dates in there, and we're gonna add the rest of our ingredients, and those will get a little finer. Now, I didn't want my oatmeal and nuts to be really creamed, so the second time now I'm gonna add a cup of oats. I'm using the old-fashioned kind of oats. And a cup of walnuts. You could use pecans, you could use any kind of nut, or you could not put the nuts in. And 1 stick of butter, or half a cup. I'm going to just pulse that, and then I really don't want to make this, I want to keep it in pretty big pieces. So. That looks pretty good. And then I'm going to add 1 egg white, and that's to hold it all together so it makes a nice topping and bottom. All right, that looks good. Right, and while I cut up my apples, I am going to start with 2 cups or 40 dates, and I have cut them up. It's kind of important to cut them up just to make sure there are no pits in them, because sometimes there are pits in the whole dates. And I'm going to add about 3/4 cup, you can kind of vary it, of water, and I'm just going to boil that on the stove just to soften the dates, and a tablespoon of lemon juice I'm going to add to that as well.
And then I'm going to take 3 pretty large apples. You can do how many you would like, more or less. I just am doing 3 large red apples. I like red apples better, and so I'm using red apples. And I'm just using a little bowl to put all the scraps in. Check it on my dates there. They are starting to boil, so I just turned them down to simmer and let them cook. It'll be about, I'm going to let them cook for about 5-10 minutes, just till they're getting soft. I wouldn't dare do this if I had a super sharp knife. This knife isn't super sharp, so I feel more comfortable just cutting it up into the bowl. Obviously, if you have a super sharp knife, don't do it this way. When you get up all your apples done, then add about a teaspoon of cinnamon. Just mix that up in there. And then I'm going to get my crust ready into my apple crisp. Now I've pulled my dates off of the stove. They've softened quite a bit, and I've pulled all the crust to my apple crisp out of the food processor, and I'm not even going to wash it. I'm just going to add that. I just took it all out, and I'm going to add the dates with the water and lemon juice into the food processor, and I'm going to blend this until it becomes a paste. Looks good. I have an 8x8 pan, and my pan is quite deep, deeper than a lot of them. So if you don't have a pan quite this deep, I would recommend maybe doing a 9x9 square, or you could even do a cast iron pan. And I have my crust topping here, and I'm just gonna put in about 1/3 of it. I'm gonna press that into the bottom. I just kind of eyeball it and see how thick of a bottom crust I want. Pile my apples on top of that. Spread those out evenly. I just cut the apples how I wanted them. You can do them smaller, or thinner, or bigger chunks, whatever you like. And then I'm just going to take the paste, the date paste that I made, and just dot that across the top of the apples. spread it lightly over the top. It's not important you get every corner. It's going to kind of melt onto there anyway. But I do like every bite to get every little section to have at least a bite of it. And then I'm going to take the rest of the crust, and as I'm doing it, I'm kind of clumping it together and just, I like to leave big chunks on there so it's pretty and gets crunchy, so you get that good crunch in it. We're going to bake it in a 350-degree oven for about 40 to 45 minutes until the apples are tender and the crust is nicely golden. All right, and my apple crisp, date nut apple crisp, has come out of the oven. I ended up putting a little bit of foil on the top of it just to stop it from browning before the apples were done. It was in for about 50 minutes. So take it out, let it cool, and then just let it cool just a tiny bit, and then serve it up and enjoy.
Thank you for joining me today. And if you have any suggestions or any questions, I would love to answer your questions. I would love for you to subscribe if you are interested in this channel. You can email me at EverydayGlutenFreebyKaren@gmail.com. I also have a blog post below that I will leave a link to that will have the full recipe for this date nut apple crisp.